Greetings, Guardians. My name is Bife here. So the last expansion in Destiny's Light and Dark saga was revealed way back at the reveal for Witch Queen. This expansion is, of course, called The Final Shape. Needless to say, speculation abounds as to what's going to happen generally in this expansion and the Lightfall expansion, which will come after Witch Queen. Today, I wanted to very briefly offer my take on what the future might hold for us. For a little context, you need to understand why the name The Final Shape is important, because the final shape in Destiny's lore is actually a very loaded term. In the lore of the Sword Logic and the Darkness, there is a simple rule. Kill others and you shall prove your might is greater than theirs. By doing so, you directly become more powerful and move the universe towards its ultimate destiny, the perfect final shape, the ultimate expression of simple power in the universe, at nothing else that may challenge you may exist. The final shape is proof of the darkness's victory. It is the proof of the winnower's correctness and the gardener's delicate fallacies. When all life in the universe has been extinguished but for the final shape, the darkness will have won and the darkness will have proven its point. To see where this expansion story might be going, I think we need to examine a few indicators from the story, and the most obvious one I want to start with is the story direction which Bungie has been building the darkness in. The darkness, as we now know, is of course two different things in Destiny's context, really. For starters, the darkness is actually the powers of the darkness, linked to entropy and tied up in the principles of sword logic. It's things like stasis, the new element that we've been wielding for almost a year now. But it's also something more. Behind the power of the darkness there is a voice, an entity of sorts, that Bungie has been hinting to very much since the beginning of Shadowkeep. It reached out and spoke to us at the end of the campaign. It possessed our ghosts inside the pyramid. It reached out to us in the Unveiling lorebook, and its signal from the artifact led us deep into the Black Garden. It began to communicate with us in the Season of Arrivals. It spoke to us in the campaign of Beyond Light as we began to wield the power of stasis. It was hinted to on the Glycon, and was beheld by Mara when she saw what had sent Oryx the Taken King. It is what leads Xivu Arath, and what wishes vengeance upon Savathûn. There is a figure behind the darkness. Whether this is the Winnower or some other creature that lies at the apex of the darkness's unknown power is currently not known. But whatever the case is, we now see our true foe. This is very much shaping up to be the ultimate actor as the enemy in the universe. This is the Thanos to our Avengers, if you will. The voice behind the darkness is coming, and is beginning to show its true face. Inevitably, this also leads us to the next big hint. The name of the expansion preceding the final shape, Lightfall. If the darkness and the light are headed towards a great conflict, as the indication seems to be, I fear that the darkness, as is indicated here, may actually succeed. There are many instances in which it's been indicated that the city may be destroyed. Osiris, before he was abducted by Savathûn, beheld that the city would fall in the Infinite Forest, just as the Undying Mind was destroyed. Upon its destruction, the Traveler suddenly was gone, and above the ruins of the last city stood a massive monolithic pyramid. Beyond this, the Vault of Glass has also revealed a vision of the future in which the tower was relocated as part of an incredible exodus. Parts and pieces of it were attached to ships and were ferried out deep into space in a massive convoy. It appears that this future isn't necessarily going to pass though, given that the various flags on the structures of the tower and on the ships traveling with it belonged, in some instances, to the old factions that have now been disbanded. Now, unless the factions are returning to the city at some point soon, I think this future is unlikely to pan out. But the thing is that there are often similarities between Destiny's various timelines, and so it's likely to be the case that a similar version of this timeline may actually pan out all the same. If we learned anything from the Season of the Splicer, it's that the future can be both predictable, in fact as you predicted, and yet surprising at the same time. Regardless, I think the biggest point to gather from all of this is the name Lightfall, which is likely to be an event in which the darkness and light come to battle each other once again, and this time I think through some machination, one way or another, the Traveler is going to lose. All of this is going to represent our Infinity War Thanos snap moment in my mind, and I think it's going to also generate imbalance in the universe. This is a moment at which Ulan Tan's principle of symmetry between light and dark will once again be challenged. For those of you who don't know, I refer back to Ulan Tan when I talk about the general fate of Destiny's universe a lot. It may be my own personal shtick and my own personal bias, but I always bring it up because I think that the comparison is important and is relatively well proven in Destiny's universe. For those of you who don't know, Ulan Tan was a rather famous or infamous warlock who proposed that there had to be balance in the universe between the light and the dark. He was effectively made a pariah for this belief, but it's better explained by a very old lore tab from the first season of Destiny 2. It comes from the Symmetry Flight ship, a ship that bears the simple philosophy that he stated in its lore tab, and it reads as follows. I propose a simple experiment. Look around. You see light, you see darkness. There could not be one without the other. They are two sides of the same coin. If it is true for these Newtonian echoes, why would it not be true of their purest paracausal forms? Therefore, I conclude, the reason you persecute me is not because of the symmetry, it's because of the truth beyond this truth, the truth which you most dread. If we could destroy the darkness, but we had to give up our light to do so, how many of us would make that trade? This statement, this moment at which Ulan Tan challenged the very notion of Guardians' existence, is based on a time when we didn't know that the darkness could be wielded by Guardians as well. And therefore, for the darkness to be defeated, we would also need to cease to exist, for without darkness to exist in the universe, light should also no longer exist. But I think now Ulan Tan's theory, whilst the core principle may still hold correct, is now somewhat flawed, based on the account of the fact that we are able to wield the darkness. I think that we, in this sense, may be the Traveler's secret weapon. We are its strict proof adapted, a strict proof born of our roar, of the potential in our voices. We are the stray variable that could change everything, and I think this is going to lead us to the final shape, just not in the way that we might initially have expected. My hypothesis is this. We as Guardians are going to be the final shape, and the imbalance that the darkness will create by destroying or defeating the Traveler is going to be returned to order by us defeating it. Ulan Tan's hypothesis of the balance required between light and dark is what's going to predict this outcome. But for the longest time, he worked on an incorrect assumption, which was that Guardians could only be found on one side of the line between light and dark. We now know this is most certainly not true, and that Guardians can walk on one side or the other, or walk the line between, wielding both darkness and light. I predict that Guardians now are going to defy the definition of the final shape as the sword logic and the darkness would dictate it, and we are instead going to create a new final shape. I believe that in conquering the darkness, we are going to subjugate it, and command both the powers of light and dark, as well as the Winnower and the Gardener. By doing this, I predict that we are the final shape, and we will attain not only balance in the universe, but a position as its ultimate arbiters. In a strange way, the complexity and the ability to embrace the light of the Traveler and the darkness has proved the Traveler's point, that complexity can also lead to strength. But in a way, we also supersede both the Traveler and the darkness, because we have proven that we, as the ones who are able to walk between, are truly more than either of them, greater than one half of the whole, greater even than the sum of both halves. And this, I think, is our destiny. Our ability to change the universe is going to be bound up in the fact that we, unlike so many other beings, are true paracausal forces in the universe that are unable to be influenced by anything other than ourselves if we should attain this final shape. In my mind, the actual expansion, the final shape, will open a door to a time when Guardians are able to save the last city, but we will also see a new age dawn, where our fate as Guardians will be boundless. We'll be astride the universe, the arbiters that act to answer a question that has existed since before time began. Which is stronger, complexity or simplicity? In which way can life evolve? Only by the pattern of darkness's sword logic, or perhaps by the complexity born out of light's bomb logic? We are the answer to this. I believe that we, in our most empowered state, when we fully wield the power of both light and darkness, will be the final answer. That's my central prediction to all of this, at least. There are a few other things that I would predict will happen in the next few years, and in this expansion it will probably be the point at which lots of these little story ends are going to be wrapped up, as a series of big plot threads come to an end, or at very least come to a new chapter. I predict that we will indeed build alliances with our strongest allies and work towards assisting them over the next few years. This includes the Awoken, the Eliksni of the House of Light, and the Cabal of Keitel's Ascendancy. We will work towards uniting the Eliksni houses, and we'll see Mithrax become the Kell of Kells, rising again in the light to lead his house as the first Eliksni Guardian. I predict that Crow will at some point become worthy of the title of Hunter Vanguard, and will ascend to a position of power and leadership for the Awoken people. I believe that we will rejoin the Cabal and face Shivur Wrath, returning to Torobatl, forging an alliance between humanity and the Cabal, and ultimately leading to a place where we liberate this once warlike people and enforce upon them a realization of a new truth, that cooperation can indeed work, as opposed to endless war and conquest. Above all, I predict that we'll be seeing Destiny transition to a game that reaches beyond our familiar solar system and reaches out into the stars. Here I think we may see other worlds that we've heard of before, but may never truly have seen. We could visit worlds such as Torobatl, Reese, Fundament, the Distributory, or even the Dark Planet, where the Drifter found creatures of darkness that devoured the light and left ghosts dead as well as their guardians. The final shape is going to be a chapter that opens up the greater universe of Destiny for adventure, and I think that there are so many different places we could truly explore. When we are victorious, the sky or the deep will be the limit, and we will be the new authority in the universe. The adventures are only just beginning. But that's all from me for now. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you want more ideas of what I think is going to come along in future expansions, go ahead and let me know. These videos won't always be on the chopping block. This one is very much a difference from my normal content because it's more about prediction. Normally I like to give you guys the story with my interpretation and whatever is based in fact. So yeah, a little bit different, but do let me know if you enjoyed the content in the comments section, but also go ahead and let me know by leaving a like, and if you want more content, go ahead and hit subscribe and the bell next to subscribe to turn on those email notifications. Best as I can tell right now, the content schedule is still going strong. We are still looking at that 4 video a week schedule, and we are still in the place where we're able to deliver that. So, exciting times. I hope you guys are enjoying all of this lovely content. But in the meantime, know that as per usual, your viewership is quite enough for me. And that my name is Byf. Rhodacia ad Astra. I'll see you, Starside.